Recording. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Okay, cool. Alright. I got a little joke for you, just to start off.
Let's hear it.
How does a duck fart?
I don't know. How?
With his ass quack. Hold on, let me just make sure my mic is good. Mercury's crawling all over me right now, and now he's licking my leg, whatever.
And taking his tri-co-host role a little too seriously.
Yeah, it's whatever. All right. I'm sorry for the delay in the Millennial Project Podcast. We have we recorded our fourth podcast, but somehow the file got corrupted and we weren't able to post it. And Ethan and I we get busy with life and whatnot, and kind of makes it difficult to record sometimes. But we're back and we're recording episode, I guess you can call it episode 4.1.
Or 0.2, maybe.
Yeah, 4.2, whatever. On the last podcast, we discussed our rankings for, the podcast we didn't post. We discussed our rankings for the Star Wars movies. And we're not going to discuss that really on this podcast, I don't think. Because I felt like the podcast that we had, it was kind of all over the place, and I felt like the rankings didn't really make sense for the audience. So I don't think we're going to discuss that on this podcast. We may come back to it later eventually, but for this podcast, Ethan and I have been discussing this
sci-fi novel idea.
Yeah, this sci-fi novel idea that he had, and we were sitting by the pool a couple weeks ago or so, and we were talking about it, and we thought, we might discuss it on the podcast and kind of, and what's the word? Expand,
yeah.
On his ideas. So, yeah, why don't you go ahead and give Merc? Why don't you go ahead and give everyone an overview of what your sci-fi novel idea is?
Okay, thanks, Sam. This is what I call Galacon Wars. It's an idea that I thought about a really long time ago when Sam and I were just kids, and we talked about it then, but then we kind of forgot about it until recently, as Sam mentioned. Basically, it's what I like to think of as maybe a mix between Star Trek and Star Wars. As the name implies, there is a intergalactic war going on between humanity in the distant future and a race of warriors called Galacons. As their name implies, they are basically a race of galactic conquerors who are basically like futuristic barbarians. And unlike the Klingons from Star Trek, as you might think of them as, they don't have much honor, and they just simply cause chaos and wage destruction and conquer worlds and peoples just for the sake of doing so and expanding their own power without regard for the consequences. And specifically in the distant future, this takes place in the 31st century, or the 3000s to simplify it. And by this time, humanity has evolved and expanded beyond our known Milky Way solar system and to other neighboring galaxies. And similar to the United Federation of Planets from Star Trek, a spaceborne military has been established, and it serves to protect humanity's galactic territories and interests and lend aid to humanity's allies, specifically other alien races that humanity had made contact with. It has made first contact with numerous other species over the centuries, all of which are either primitive or advanced or on the same level of evolution, you might call it, or evolving as humanity. And in doing so, humanity has also colonized other worlds capable of supporting life that have not been claimed by any other race. As for the Galacons, they are led by an individual who I envision is similar to the likes of dictators and tyrants like Hitler, Stalin, Caligula, Vlad the Impaler, and Mussolini, to name a few. And they originate from a neighboring galaxy that has not yet been explored or discovered by humanity, which in turn is similar to the Yuuzhan Vong from the Star Wars expanded universe. So they're basically invaders from outside. What do you think so far, Sam?
I hate it all. Just kidding. No, I'm definitely has potential to go somewhere, but let's just try and expand on the idea a little. So you said that humanity had expanded beyond Earth, sort of like the UFP in Star Trek.
Correct.
So like, tell me a little bit about what is this organization called that we're part of?
I was thinking maybe the Intergalactic Star Force, the IGSF.
Okay. The Intergalactic Star Force. And who all... Obviously, Earth is a member of this.
And it's it's still the main homeworld of humanity.
And who else is part of this alliance?
I was thinking the Elysians, well, like we talked about when we first retouched on this idea, and they're basically like a race of who were of off-worlders who, although maybe primitive by our current standards, they thrive on nature and they live in a more peaceful, idyllic environment or society on their own planet.
So they're almost like a mirror image of the Galacons in a way?
In a way, yes. And they're kind of like maybe, and even though they don't resemble them in any way, the way they live and how they rely on nature to enjoy their lives and thrive, and while also protect themselves from off-world invaders, I think that makes them reminiscent of the Wookiees from Star Wars.
Are they spacefaring? Do they have spacefaring technology, like to travel to other planets? Or did humans just find them and start protecting them for
they have mostly atmospheric craft, but they do have some spaceborne craft, though not as advanced as what humanity has.
Okay, so they are able to travel outside their solar system, but
not as fast or as far as humanity can.
Okay. And all right, so the humans are a member of this alliance. The Elysians are a member of this alliance. Who else populates this galaxy?
I've been having trouble coming up with that, but I was thinking maybe also a race of explorers who are kind of like who are more or less academic.
Okay.
I haven't decided what to call them yet, but they like to basically worship the stars in a way, because they consider them as a way of illuminating and enlightening them, and at the end of each day, when night comes and darkness envelops their world, they look to the stars as a guiding post or something.
So they're like a spiritual people.
Yeah, they worship the stars to the point that they've built spacecraft of their own to go and to them and to explore them, and through it all they've learned to navigate astronomically and and in doing so, they've established contact with other races, including our own, and they encounter us first.
They came to Earth first.
Yes, as a scouting party of sorts, and that was how we made first contact. And they're kind of like the Vulcans. They rely on knowledge and wisdom while also basically worshiping the cosmos for giving them life.
Sounds like a mix of Bajoran and Vulcan.
I'm thinking I might call them the Archimedans.
Archimedans.
That the name implied is from the Greek philosopher Archimedes.
Archimedans. Okay. So that gives you another race to work and build upon. So that gives you 3 races. And humans, okay, so the humans, we have like spacefaring technology, but we're not as advanced. No one is advanced as the Galacons, really.
Because, unfortunately, as per the nature of war, science thrives, and since the Galacons thrive on it, they use their time to constantly advance their own technology and find new ways to, like, destroy structures or kill more people at a time, and the like, and make their ships travel faster and farther.
Now, the ships that the humans use, do we rely on like fighters and stuff like in Star Wars, or is it more in the realm of Star Trek where it's like
naval based?
Yeah, more naval based.
It's both.
It's both.
Because in this case, it's reminiscent of the popular game franchise Wing Commander.
I'm not super familiar with Wing Commander.
It was popular back in the 90s, and at some point a live action movie was made, and although that wasn't very good, 3 of its games featured live action with sci-fi alumni like Mark Hamill, Malcolm McDowell, John Rhys Davies, Francois Chow, to name a few. And, Tom Wilson from Back to the Future. But in that case, Wing Commander, it showed like it's basically World War II in space, and the premise is similar. And humanity relies on a spaceborne military that includes like a navy with battleships, carriers, and dreadnoughts that come with fighters to engage enemy naval vessels and fighters of their own. And that's what's going on here with humanity in Galacon Wars.
Okay.
We have to be basically prepared for war if we're going to stay free and maintain peace.
So let's talk about the fleet for a sec. Humanity has this fleet of ships. How big are the ships generally? Like, are they as big as like a Mon Calamari cruiser, a
Star Destroyer,
a Galaxy class ship?
It depends on.
Or is it as big as like the one of the battle stars from like Battlestar Galactica?
They're about the size of battle stars from BSG, yeah. Okay. And there are also smaller ships like cruisers and destroyers, medical frigates, and exploratory vessels for different roles. And the battle stars, they're not battle stars in this case, but they're more star dreadnoughts, which function as both carriers and battleships.
Okay, and what is humanity's most powerful ship called? What is our top of the line ship?
I think that would be the IGS Zeus.
No, what's the class called? I mean, What's the class?
I think the class should be called a universal class.
Universal Studios class?
No, but I'm still debating on this. But
Okay, but humanity, like if we're some spacefaring, people, like what would life be like on Earth for us? Is it more like utopian, or is it more like dystopian, or
what do you mean by dystopian?
dystopian, like something you'd see in like Blade Runner, like dystopian like that, or is it utopian like you'd see in Star Trek or something?
I think it would be.
I don't know if you ever saw that movie Elysium.
I've heard about it. I haven't seen it.
That's pretty dystopian. Everyone on Earth is poor, and there's only like a few rich people.
I think it would be more utopian.
Utopian.
Because we still rely on currency, but we've learned to balance the budget, in other words. We balance like between military or defense spending and between environmental conservation and education and healthcare, and also making living wages more reasonable while lowering costs of living and survival supplies like food and medicine, water, utilities, and the like.
Okay, but like, so we're more utopian, but we still have our issues, you're saying, basically.
Yes.
We still have... And Earth is pretty united at this point.
It is. We've pulled together our knowledge, skills, and resources and reached out for the stars, as they say in Star Trek. And together we've set about making contact with new life and exploring new worlds and going where no one has gone before. And all the while, though, we've reminded ourselves that there are at least some threats beyond our known galaxy that will try to destroy us, and we have to be ready for such a prospect or situation. So we've learned to create a spaceborne military.
Okay, so we have a large fleet of ships, or at least a relatively large fleet.
And with an equally sizable army, marine, and aerospace force, together with the space stations reminiscent of the star bases from Star Trek that have their own, that serve as shipyards, living facilities for military personnel and their families, and also as repair docks for naval vessels. And also we have research stations over previously unexplored worlds, and also comm relay stations.
Okay.
To make communications faster and more efficient.
Okay, so and you said that the Galacons they're in the Milky Way, obviously. And how much percentage of space have they taken over at this point, or what percentage of the Milky Way have they taken over?
More than 40%.
More than 40%. And it's just getting worse every day.
Yes. We're only just managing to hold them at bay until we're able to rally and launch a counteroffensive to basically rout them and try to find a weakness of their own in order to finish them off faster. Even to the point of sending spec op missions behind Galacon lines to undermine their war effort or discover whatever new weapons or technology they're coming up with, or perhaps deliver a single knockout punch from within them to put an end to the wars.
And what is the Galacons' motivation to take over everything? Like, what makes the Galacons tick?
I think it's initially though they were kind of like us humans, only they never basically considered the idea of peace ever since after some Galacons like fought a battle with another unknown race that we don't make contact with. They wipe out that race, and from that point on, they develop an addiction to conflict and become like spaceborne savages because they after that they just wanted more bloodshed, more stuff, more worlds to loot and plunder and take as their own.
Or, I just had an idea. What if a long time ago they were actually subjugated? They were made to feel inferior by a race that's long gone, and they rose up as slaves and defeated that race. And ever since then, they've just become more powerful, and they don't ever want to be put in a position again of having to answer to anyone. So they think it's best to just, to conquer everything.
And they make themselves out to be the superior race.
Yeah.
I like that idea better. Thanks for inputting it.
They were subjugated by a race, sort of like the Remans and the Romulans. They were subjugated by a race, and they rose up as slaves, defeated that race eventually after years of war, and decided that they never wanted to be subject to anyone, so they see all races as a threat to their way of life
and newly gained independence, in other words.
So they decide to either conquer or wipe out all other races.
And the Milky Way, and with humanity and all of its neighboring races being next. I like that idea.
So, what story are you going to tell within this universe? Like, who is the story going to be about? Is it going to be about a Galacon? Is it going to be about an Elysian? Is it going to be about an Archimedean? Is it going to be about a human?
I was thinking of telling the story from different perspectives, so that at least one member of each race.
And what's the story going to be about? Is it going to be about the war effort, or is the war going to be just something that's happening in the universe? Or is it going to be a small contained story? It's going to be a big grandiose story about humans rising up and defeating the Galacons, or vice versa, Galacons defeating humans, an Elysian rising up.
I think it'll be about, part of it will be about human soldiers fighting on the front lines and them telling how they feel the war is going and how it's going to end, and Elysians, though desperate to fight the Galacon invaders, are still holding out on hope that someday they know that they will be free, and the Archimedeans, who maybe at least one who finds himself captured by the Galacons and is forced into slavery by them and gets to know what the Galacons are really like, and he secretly writes down a little diary of sorts detailing life within Galacon society.
I think that I do like the idea of telling a story from different perspectives. But I think for a first book, or a first novel or graphic novel or whatever, short story, I think the first story you should tell in this universe should be relatively self-contained, because I think it could be easier to tell that on a smaller scale as you expand on the universe. I think you should tell a story of maybe sort of giving off the vibes of All Quiet on the Western Front, of maybe a group of human soldiers during the war on the ground, and they're on a fucking miserable ass planet.
Yeah.
Like they're on, let's say they're on like a lava type planet.
Like Mustafar from
Like
Star
kind of
Wars.
like Mustafar. And they're fighting off the Galacons, and they think it's fucking stupid that they have to be on this planet, but they realize how important it is for humans to control this planet for the strategic war effort. And they're there, they're fighting the Galacons, but every day they become less and less motivated because of how miserable the planet is, how vicious the Galacons are, and
maybe one after another, this group of soldiers gets picked off by the Galacons by happenstance throughout the campaign until maybe only one remains.
And then
right up to the end of the campaign.
A way for the audience to get to know the humans and the Galacons a little better is maybe in the midst of a heated battle, one of the soldiers runs into one of the Galacons, and they just outright refuse to kill the other one. Both of them refuse to kill the other. And they just sit there and they start talking. And they tell each other about
their respective races and why they're fighting and how they feel about the war and where it's going and all that. Yeah,
and it maybe can just give perspective to each side, and it would be a good chance for, this Galacon warrior to be like, look, we were slaves long ago, and we were totally screwed over until we rose up and we fought, and we fight because we don't want to be subjugated ever again. And humans like, look, we're just trying to defend ourselves. And I think it might be an interesting story to tell.
Yeah, I think so too, and I'm liking what you're suggesting. And while the Elysians, in the same vein, could be like something of a resistance fighter's perspective.
Yeah, and maybe you could tell this. Maybe you could tell a story from an Elysian's point of view, defending his home planet, and yeah, something like that.
And maybe also show like another story that show like distinguished individuals of like heroes from both sides, like say an ace starfighter pilot, one human and another one who's Galacon,
to show the different sides.
Yeah, to show different sides of how heroes on both sides are viewed by their respective peoples, and how from a larger standpoint what a general or admiral does in like controlling their part of the war effort and why they're doing so.
It almost sounds like this story's evolving into not everything's black and white, that war is a gray area, and no side is necessarily good or bad most of the time.
Because even the best of people have their flaws.
Well, I should say I think there are bad people in wars and people with bad motivations and stuff, but on an individual level, people fight for what they believe in. And yeah. So this human, okay, well, let me ask, what's the name of this planet that this human is on?
What? You mean like
the lava planet?
Yeah. How about
Puglafar? I don't know.
How about
well, I'll give you a letter.
Helenesia. After like the volcano Mount St. Helens.
Helenesia. Polynesia. Yeah.
I'm thinking of names of known active volcanoes. And I'm just getting inspiration from that.
Polynesia. Or
Vesuvia.
Vesuvia?
After Vesuvius.
Well, I mean, it would make sense that humans would name it after something on Earth. So I guess Vesuvia would work.
Yeah, because it was the super volcano that wiped out Pompeii.
Yeah. Okay, so you might as well write that down, Vesuvia. And then on this planet, this human that you're telling this story about, is he like a lowly private in the military on the ground, or is he like a pilot, or is he?
Well, as you said, we're trying to like make this reminiscent of All Quiet on the Western Front, and I think we should just make this about like make him a lowly private who goes from dreaming about fighting the good fight and coming home a hero to a grim struggle for survival in the midst of a hell that's going on all around him, and the planet he's on, Vesuvia, is like hell in and of itself.
And yeah, I think the story could start right after his best friend died, too. But let's think of a name for this guy. What is this guy's name? Private Pug? Just
No.
kidding.
How about Private Peter Bertram?
Okay, that works.
Peter Bertram, because that to me still has the same initials as Paul Balmer, the main character of All Quiet on the Western Front.
Peter Bertram.
Yeah.
Private Peter Bertram. And what's the name? What's the name of some of his cohorts? Some of his
Comrades, you mean?
comrades.
How about Andy Croft after Albert Kropp, and maybe Joseph. Maybe Joseph.
Kelly.
No, maybe Joseph Briggs.
Briggs.
And maybe Stephen Krasinski. Maybe and Fred Rivers.
What about a woman? A woman character? Because, I mean, women are obviously going to be fighting
Right.
in this fight, too.
How about...
So maybe his friend was a woman.
Yeah, but maybe their mentor, too, like Stan Kaczynski from All Quiet on the Western Front. This woman is older than the rest of them, but she knows how to survive, and she sort of teaches them how to do so. And
so what's the name of this woman? If you say Gina Carano, I'm going to beat you on the head.
No, it's not gonna be Gina Carano. Although I might make her similar. How about Serena Kristen?
Okay. Are you writing these names down?
Yeah,
I don't know why, but whenever we do these podcasts, I always get really fucking hungry during them.
Really?
I don't know why. I went to Waffle House earlier. Again. Alright, so we got our little band of misfits with their female leader.
Or survival expert, yeah. I wouldn't say they're misfits. They're just a group of like poor put upon young people who are fighting in a war that they feel like they don't understand.
What's the name of the friend that died, though?
The first friend who dies, or just like maybe Pete?
The one that dies before the story even starts.
How about How about George Kettlewell?
George. And George should have a nickname.
How about Kilo, because he's a bit overweight?
Call him Kilo.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't go as far as saying he was overweight. Maybe he was just stocky.
Yeah.
He's just a stocky guy, big fella.
And also has to wear glasses.
Well, you make him sound like a dork.
I'm not. I'm trying to base it off of, make it reminiscent of All Quiet on the Western Front, because that based on that story, that's where I'm getting my inspiration for it from.
And how did Kilo die?
Well, he dies like going on like a forward patrol with some other veteran soldiers to do some recon, and they come under fire and the other veteran soldiers die, but just as he's about to make it, while he's like over a trench or something, he gets shot by a sniper.
Right. He gets shot, they get ambushed, and he gets shot by a sniper, and they don't recover his body.
Yeah.
So they run back to base, and they tell him Kilo's dead, like he got shot, we couldn't recover him. But then at the end of the story, Kilo defected.
What?
Kilo defects. He defects to the Galacons.
So he faked his death?
Yeah. He faked.
But
no. I don't want to go as far as saying he faked his death. He does get shot. But what ends up happening is he gets shot, and then the Galacons find him, and they capture him, and they try to press him for information, and they tell him their story, and they're like, look, like, this is our side of the story, this is why we do what we do.
But
and he's like, you know what, fuck it, I'll defect.
I don't agree with that, because like I'm already doing something like that for the Archimedes story.
But what's going on with them?
The Archimedes story, he gets himself captured and is put on slave detail in a prison camp after he refuses to tell the Galacons about his people's side of the war effort.
Okay, well then why don't you say one of the Archimedes defects in the story?
I'm not gonna have anyone defect. Maybe not yet. I haven't decided on that.
Why couldn't someone defect?
Because what reason would they have to defect in the first place? We haven't gotten there.
Maybe they relate to the Galacons in some way. Maybe they were bullied as a kid, and they're like, yeah, you know what? I want to be strong, just like the Galacons are, and the humans are losing this war, and we're fucked as it is. So maybe I'll just go ahead and defect. And then at the end of the story, Bertram, what was his first name again? Peter Bertram,
yeah.
He's fighting, and then he's fighting off some Galacons, and all of a sudden he sees Kilo, and he's like, bro, what the fuck? And then Kilo's like, look, you can like join us. You can join the Galacons, and the humans are gonna lose. So,
but what about his family back home?
He doesn't have any family. He's an outcast, and the only people that really ever accepted him were his comrades. But when he got shot and captured and kind of brainwashed by the Galacons,
made him feel like that he was abandoned by them.
Yeah, maybe they're just like, why don't you join us? And he's like, fuck off. No. Okay.
Well, I think that could work a little because there were a number of Allied servicemen who in World War II who, for their own reasons, defected to the Nazis. I think it could be reminiscent of that.
It's just an idea, though. Like,
I know, and I'm voicing it, and I'm thinking out loud about what it's making me think of.
I just want to avoid cliches, and I want to make this story maybe as interesting as possible. And
I understand.
Take some unexpected twist and turns. So I think that might be kind of a cool way to go about it.
Yeah, I think so too, now that I'm thinking about it.
But so the Galacons, we're fighting the Galacons. Who is the main baddie when it comes to the Galacons in this story?
I'm trying to. The main baddie, who I said is like a.
Who's the antagonist in the story?
I think he should be called Dolfring Men Stalinzo. But I don't know, that sounds ridiculous. I'm just thinking out loud here. I'm trying to come up with like different sounding names based on real world examples. But let's say that he had a difficult childhood growing up, and then eventually he strikes out, runs away from home to try to make something of himself and to get away from a broken home. In other words, he finds work and feels that he might be getting a purpose in life, and then he sees a recruiting poster or ad, you might say, and decides maybe his future lies in the Galacon military. So he joins up and goes off to fight. He enjoys success on the battlefield, comes home a hero, and then he falls in love with a female Galacon, and just when it seems like he might finally find a life of happiness and contentment that he always wanted, she is maybe murdered by a group of
by a human. What if she was killed by a human? Humans are supposed to be the good guys, and that could give him motivation to fight.
I was thinking of that, either that or another race who are affiliated with the IGSF, and then he decides to, out of revenge, he decides to refocus on his efforts on rising up to becoming the leader of the Galacons and leveraging fear of other races trying to exert control over the Galacons and their territory. He proceeds to declare war on all the races around them in the Milky Way and launches a campaign from there. What do you think?
Yeah, it's got potential.
I'm just thinking off the bat here, so.
Yeah. Well, it makes you think a little bit.
Yeah, it's really getting my imagination going.
Yeah, you'll just have to continue writing this stuff down and come up with a good self-contained story for all this. How long have we been going? About
45 minutes. Pause. I'm really liking the ideas that we're throwing out and jumbling around here.
And all these guys that and the woman, they're all human.
Yeah.
There's no Archimedans or Elysians with them. Or the Archimedans.
Because the humans and the other Archimedans and the Elysians, they all have their own militaries, but they haven't yet begun integrating each member of their races, although they do have liaison officers and the like.
Do they have joint operations?
Yes, they do.
Okay. Um. Okay. Well, I think we'll just wrap things up right here.
Yeah, I think we covered a good deal, and we're touching on this story idea.
Yeah, and we'll continue to talk about this and keep going. I apologize to everyone for the shortness of this podcast, but if you guys enjoy this kind of discussion, just let us know in the comments down below. Be sure to hit like and subscribe.
And let us know if you have any ideas of your own, and we could check them out and touch on them.
Yeah, if there's any topics you would like us to discuss, let us know, and we'll be sure to look into it. But anyway, for right now, I am your host, Sam Stedman.
I am co-host Ethan Escrow.
And Mercury is sniffing Ethan's keyboard. Yeah, thank you guys for listening. Appreciate it, and have a great day. Bye.
Bye.
Oh man, I'm so hungry. I could eat a cow.